The First Minister Humza Yousaf is resisting demands to suspend Nicola Sturgeon from the SNP. Yesterday saw the arrest of his predecessor as part of the police's inquiry into the party's funding and finances. She was questioned for 7 hours and then released without charge pending further investigation. She is the third senior SNP figure to have been taken into custody after her husband Peter Murrell, the party's former chief executive, and the MSP Colin Beattie, who is the SNP's former treasurer. They too were released without charge. The Conservatives and Labour are calling for Ms Sturgeon to be suspended, but Mr Yousaf thinks there is no cause for that. He spoke to STV News' reporter Nicola Sturgeon about yesterday's dramatic development.
My reaction is that it's been pretty personally painful, if I'm honest. I think people know and have heard me talk about my personal friendship, my admiration for Nicola Sturgeon, so I know how difficult a day would have been, not just for her, but the entire party and for the SNP, and as I say, for many of us personally. But I've got to separate out that personal, on those personal feelings I may be feeling with the job as not just SNP leader, but importantly as First Minister, and that's why, of course, as you'd expect, I couldn't comment on a live police investigation.
There's been calls, obviously, from political leaders from different parties for you to suspend her. What's your view on that? Will you suspend Nicola Sturgeon?
No, I won't be suspending Nicola Sturgeon. I'll be treating her exactly in the same way as I treated, for example, Colin Beattie, both released without charge, and therefore there's no reason for me to suspend them.
And why would you not take that decision, given that when she was in your position, she did suspend other people?
Look, I can only account for the decisions that I make, and I'm aiming to be as consistent in my approach to this, and I have shown that consistency because where individuals have been released without charge, let me emphasise that, without charge, therefore I see no reason to suspend them. I can't account for decisions that have been made in the past. I can only account for the decisions that I choose to make.
Should she be considering suspending her SNP membership as Alex Salmond did?
There's no reason for her to do so, no pressure certainly from me nor the party for her to do so. As I say, she's been released without charge. I think, the situation that you're comparing to maybe will be different because charges were brought forward. Nicola has been released without charge, and therefore I see no reason for me to suspend her membership, and I see no reason for Nicola to have to suspend her membership.
Just a couple of days ago, I think it was, you tweeted that in Westminster, the events that have been happening and unfolding there of late, you compared that to a third-rate political soap opera. Given your stance on that, how would you describe what's happening within the SNP and the Scottish Government at the moment?
Look, I've spoken about this at length from when the first arrest was made in relation to Peter Murrell and subsequent arrests that have made thereafter. These are difficult and challenging days without a shadow of a doubt. But I repeat what I've said to you right throughout this questioning. Those individuals, of course, released without charge, and I think it's really important that we let the process, the justice process, take its natural course without me intervening or indeed interfering.
And it's not just opposition politicians who are questioning Nicola Sturgeon's continuing membership of the SNP. The party's MSPs Ash Regan and Michelle Thompson believe the former leader should consider her position. Back in 2015, when she was serving at Westminster, Ms Thompson was suspended when Ms Sturgeon was in charge. That was amid a fraud probe, even though the then MP was never arrested.
I've made clear in a statement today that I think that Nicola Sturgeon should step aside from the SNP whip temporarily whilst the investigation is underway. Now, the reason I think that's the case is that she herself set precedent over a number of different cases where, as the leader of the SNP, she required people to lose the whip. Now, I know she likes to behave with integrity and act consistently, and I think she probably needs to think very carefully about the situation. Now, in terms of the SNP, I understand now that the First Minister has come out and said that he doesn't see any reason for her to resign. That's entirely in his gift, but it points to the fundamental lack of consistency here. What exactly is the process and who decides? Because it doesn't seem to me to be clear in any way whatsoever.
For you, you are the precedent, aren't you?
Well, I'm certainly one of the precedents. There was quite a number of them. I mean, I've put it on record that I lost the whip some 8 years ago. It was a very difficult time when I wasn't actually the focus of a police investigation, and I certainly wasn't arrested. But in some respects, that's not actually the point. The point is about consistency, and I fail to see how the former First Minister can see that that's okay in some situations, but not in others. And clearly the party needs to get its processes sorted out of what we do in these kind of circumstances.
So if she's not going to resign the whip temporarily or whatever, do you think Humza Yousaf should suspend Nicola Sturgeon from the SNP?
It's up to the new First Minister what he does, but I would like to see that there is a clear, documented, fair, transparent process, not somebody decides whether it's the old First Minister or the new First Minister, and then that process is clearly applied to everybody in the same way, because we've already seen some precedent set and now something totally different. Well, what is it? How should it work in the party? And I'm not clear about that.
I mean, Humza Yousaf would say that his consistency is that he didn't suspend Peter Murrell, he didn't suspend Colin Beattie. So why should Nicola Sturgeon be suspended?
Because Colin Beattie and Peter Murrell weren't setting the rules at the point when Nicola Sturgeon was the First Minister. Nicola Sturgeon was setting the rules when she was First Minister for other people, and I'm assuming that these were rules she felt were important. For example, I could see that some of these issues, and they're very difficult for the people involved, are a distraction for the party, and I know she would have had good reason for requiring people to lose the whip. Now, surely, if there were good reasons, those good reasons would apply equally well to herself.
But similarly, you feel that you were treated unfairly 8 years ago, and you now want Nicola Sturgeon treated similarly unfairly now, it seems.
No, I want her to behave consistently. And that's why I've said, if the new First Minister says, no, we're going to develop a proper process, it's going to be transparent, it's going to be fair, I fully accept that. But the point I'm making is that if Nicola Sturgeon felt that it was about protecting the brand of the party, about behaving consistently with everybody else, then surely she must behave the same way for herself.
Do you think Nicola Sturgeon, by not resigning, is damaging the party?
I suppose my worry is, look, this is a terrible situation for the party to be in. It really is awful. I don't know anyone who doesn't think that way. I suppose that is a concern, that it's a constant distraction. And actually looking back, you know, it's on record, I wasn't all that happy at the time, but you've got to be able to operate in the interests of the party. And that's why I'm saying about Humza Yousaf's got to do the right thing by him. But, you know, I do think it is a distraction. It really is not a good time for our party, being completely frank.